Welcome to your life.
Your personal identity is what makes you unique. But what defines our identity? What makes us who we are today? Is it our family? Our friends? Is it the generation we were born into? Or is it those life-changing experiences, the good and the bad, that all form part of our own personal history? This is the story of two people who are closely connected, yet they grew up generations apart. This is Peter, born in 1937 in the city of Sydney. Peter was born into a time period where the Australian economy was suffering, referred to as the Great Depression. During this time there were high levels of unemployment, and many unemployed men and women took to the countryside in search of agricultural work. Peter's parents, Lionel and Winifred, were no different. In 1940, they moved to the small farming community of Sylvania in the south of Sydney in search of a better life, where they started a poultry farm. On one side there was a dairy farm, and on the other side a market garden. Peter recalls the surroundings as quite barren other than this, with only a few houses. There were no bitumen roads, only bush tracks. Despite growing up during the time of war and depression, he recalls a happy childhood. Peter grew up as an only child and therefore dedicated his spare time to caring for his animals, riding horses through the bush with his friends, and helping out on the farm a little each day. In 1942, at the age of 5, Peter started his schooling life at Miranda Public School, a little old timber schoolhouse in the place of where Westfield Miranda now stands. During this time, Australia was once again involved in a worldwide conflict. He recalls sitting around the radio each night with his parents, listening, hoping that the conflict would not reach the shores of Sydney. This time period also saw a boom in the population within the Sutherland Shire area. Subdivision of many properties had begun, as there was an increasing demand for land for residential purposes, resulting in the closure of many farms and market growers. In 1950, Peter entered high school at Sydney Boys High. Travelling to school was a time-consuming affair involving several buses and trains to travel into the city. During this time, he recalls walking to the station, catching the train to Cronulla, and spending his spare time surfing at Cronulla Beach on his longboard. At the age of 18, when Peter finished high school, he enrolled at the University of Sydney with the hopes and dreams of becoming a lawyer. Majority of his university experience involves studying from textbooks and taking notes. At this age, it was compulsory for all males to enlist in national service training. As he was enrolled in university, he was able to postpone it for a year and therefore enlisted at age 19. He trained with the University of Sydney Regiment for 5 years before applying for a discharge to put his study on hold and move to Cairns. He is grateful every day that, unlike the thousands of Australians who fought in wars, he never had to put this training into use, especially in either the Korean or Vietnam War. A few years later, while Peter was living in Cairns working in a tin mine, he proposed to his girlfriend Jan through a letter, and they were married several months later with an overdraft, as they had no money. The next couple of decades would see Peter become a partner in a successful law firm and raise 3 daughters, Peter, Kylie and Gil, giving them every possible opportunity he could. In 1987, Kylie, my mother, met Andrew and they were married 1 year later. In 1990, I was born. I grew up as a child of the 90s, and therefore many of my childhood memories are quite different to my grandfather's, even though I grew up just around the corner. I too grew up in the southern suburbs of Sydney, however looking around there is little evidence of the farming properties that once shaped the landscape. I, like my grandfather, attended primary school, high school and university, however I did not spend my childhood working on a farm and riding horses. The dirt roads once connecting the suburbs within the area have been gradually increased in number, size and traffic, meaning much of my entertainment came from videos, colour television and imitating my idols, the Spice Girls. Now, In my 20s, I look back on my grandfather's life. There are so many similarities, yet so many differences. I travel the same streets as my grandfather did when he was my age. I visit the same beaches. I travel across the same bridges as he did. I attend the same university as he did. Yet, our lives have been quite different. The world is constantly evolving and changing every day. It is these changes that impact upon our experiences of life and who we as individuals identify as. It is the experiences my pop has had that have led him to give me the best advice I have ever received. He says, "Success in life is not necessarily owning the biggest house, earning the most money, going on the most expensive holidays, or owning the biggest car. Instead, it is being part of a loving, supportive family and a circle of loyal friends. We should go back and look at our history and try to look to our future. It enriches the mind and gives you a balanced, well-informed view of your own life."